the original season was sitting in comparison, and I mean, who can blame them, right? This guy, Hutch here, says that he hates gamers for this rating. But hey man, you can't blame gamers for this time for this kind of a mess. This show wasn't really meant for people like me anyways. It was actually meant to appeal to the modern audience, you know, the people that eat up everything apparently. And clearly, based on how this creative decision has gone down so far, your modern audience isn't exactly happy with the fact that Joel just got his head resized by a golf club in the middle of winter like this. Gee, I guess this maybe wasn't a good idea story-wise, was it? Well, too late now, as they say. The genie is out of the bottle and he's doing drugs now, I guess, and now we're all gonna suffer for it. The biggest problem with how the live-action version of the story fumbled was that, hate it or love it, Joel dying is the most important and pivotal moment of the entire franchise. The only other moment that comes close is when Joel, murders the Fireflies in the first game at the end. And if you ask me, when it came to part 1's ending with Joel promoting everyone who worked at the Fireflies to being dead by shooting them with bullets, I found that the show also downplayed that moment as well. They just went by it too quickly. They didn't lean into how severe and important that moment really was. Honestly, I found the entire first season of The Last of Us 2, it kind of all just skirted by that entire story far too quickly, if I'm being honest. There just wasn't enough time, in my opinion, to really see Joel and Ellie connect in that first season to like what I would want, I guess, especially when they spend an entire episode on those two guys kissing instead of, the plot of the game that matters. But whereas the first season ran by everything so quickly, the second season has now decided to pull the rug from underneath everybody, and it's for the worse in every way. The simple reason is that the best actor, acting-wise anyway, on the show was Pedro Pascal by far. While I wasn't really crazy with him playing Joel myself, credit where it's due, he was still giving the performance all that he had. Ellie in this is just, I just don't like this portrayal of Ellie at all. She just kind of comes off more so like a literal child with a temper tantrum than a young adult, and the show's second season hasn't really rectified this at all. Ellie still disobeys orders like crazy all the time, yet no one seems to reprimand or discipline her, which makes zero sense given the situation. But the character so far that feels the most character assassinated, if you will, is actually weirdly enough Abby. So Abby in the show is probably the most milquetoast and modern audience part of this entire thing, and it's all for the worst reasons. It has nothing to do with the actor playing her, by the way. I think the acting that Abby's actor is doing is just fine. Unfortunately though, no amount of acting can really make up for a bad script and a bad story, and sadly in season 2 so far, they are drowning in both of these reasons like crazy. The problem with how the whole Joel dying scene was that it was very clear that this was just inferior to the game's version in every single way, if I'm being honest. Like, here's a picture of how the scene in the show is framed. It's much brighter, and when you compare it to the game version of how Joel goes out, it just feels completely different. In the game, Joel dies in the basement of the lodge, and it's important because the way the room is lit, it's dark, it's really cold, and it's pretty much a grave all upon itself. And let's not forget how in the game, Ellie finds Joel by literally descending into the basement, and it's all framed as dark and creepy. It's as if Ellie is walking literally into hell itself when she opens that door, and then she sees what happens to Joel. In the show, it's the opposite. They're above ground, it's far brighter. Joel isn't even represented by the other members of Abby's group in the TV show. In the game, Joel, despite having his help, continues to fight back. They have to hold him down despite his horrible injury, because that's who Joel is. He's a survivor, no matter what. Here they frame Joel as weak and pathetic in the show. I really dislike that a lot. Joel would not sit there and not try something, anything, especially when we know that in the first game and first season, when the Fireflies try to escort Joel out of the building, he makes his move to save Ellie, kills them, and does what he needs to do. This live-action version doesn't understand Joel, it seems. He feels, dare I say, emasculated, which yet again doesn't surprise me considering that Pedro Pascal is playing yet another emasculated male character in another project again. But like I said, the least bit of confidence here is clearly in Abby herself. In the game, when Abby and her team arrive to find Joel, you as the player don't necessarily know why there, and Joel. Why do these people want to kill him? Sure, your mind might go to the Fireflies and think, well, it's the original ending, right? But the ambiguity of the game's opening frames it in a way that these people hunting Joel could be anyone from Joel's past. And it's that confusion of not necessarily knowing who these people are in opening part 2 that adds to the tension and the rage that the player will undoubtedly feel when Joel is murdered. Why are they doing this? How did Joel wrong this Abby person? He's never fully told why she's doing what she's doing to him in that opening. Here, let's
feel the wrath of the goddess!
Right now, and you can see how this pain, confusion, and everything that goes on there.
Hey, Danny! Enjoy the fire! You're welcome!
Some uninvited guests.
Woo! Never miss!
The mighty man.
Glory is almost yours!
Did you even train for this? As if I wasn't strong enough.
Hit this place hard and watch the show.
And so the goddess comes crashing down to earth.
He's out. Put him against the wall.
Get off me! Get off me!
Money can't buy happiness, but I can afford everything else.
"30 seconds before you attack. Get ready. Be strong together. The actual Magneto. Wow.
Should I know who you are?
No, but you should know magnetism doesn't work on super cool materials. Guess what I can do?
Be impervious, it seems.
The battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All you need to do is capture the mission area. Got it?
Do it.
If the world didn't need superheroes, I'd make it a carnival. Relay deployed. It ain't cheap.
There they are. Need some help. Be strong together.
For mutant kind!
Looks like the mission area is yours to capture now.
Clear out.
You get a web and you get a web and you get a web! Spider domain is not for the...
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
They captured the mission area.
Rush this.
As you saw, Abby
I'm
makes
back.
zero
And now
mention
there's
as to why
hellfire
she's
to
hunting
pay.
Joel, why she's there, or anything like that, really. Even when Abby tells Joel to guess who they are, he has no answer that really comes to his mind. You might think that's because Joel doesn't care, because he's really hurting right now with the whole knee being blown
I'm
up.
surprised
But I
that
think it's
helped.
Joel not being able to think of any one specific group, because he's done so much damage and caused so much death in the past 20 years that he's been operating during this apocalypse. That to narrow down any one group that he wronged or whatever.
Feel the wrath of the goddess!
Maybe Fireflies, maybe they're smugglers or someone's kids, whoever, doesn't really matter. Because Joel has done so much that we don't know about that he could be anyone. And that's the point, that it adds to the confusion and ambiguity of the scene. We don't actually find out who Abby technically is until much later on in the game when we start getting flashbacks that show that her dad was the surgeon who was going to work on Ellie. But this was smart, I gotta say, of the writers of the game, because revealing too much too early would rob the scene and the central point in the game of its most impactful moment. Joel dying was the gut punch. If they revealed who Abby was in that moment in the game, it would severely soften the blow, or even justify why this was happening in the first place, which would, in my opinion, involve the story and the game's pacing. But the real tangible reason for why you, the player, wanted to keep playing this game. So what the writers of the show did was exactly the wrong move, which was what they did one of the most basic storytelling sins that there is, which is that they didn't show, they told you, which is why this was happening from the get-go, and that was wrong. Therefore, you're robbed of the confusion, the rage, and sadness
against the world
by Joel dying. Because again, in the game, when you see Ellie trying to break free and Joel is just being beaten and crazy, you still don't know why he's doing this. It feels like a targeted, yet somewhat random attack. You're not given anything. You know that the thing people fear most is something that they don't understand. The fear of the unknown is the great equalizer amongst humans, and it's that unknowable uncertainty that paralyzes people every single day when it comes to how they make the decisions that they do with their lives. But the writers of the show here were very clearly scared of audiences abandoning the show outright following Joel's death. So they wanted to ensure that you watching knew why Abby was doing what she was doing. But it just proved that the writers by association didn't have the faith in the writing of the game's story to hold itself up in live action like this. Maybe they justify it because in the game you immediately can keep playing to, find out what happens next. But in the show, you have to wait a week between episodes.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
And in my opinion, unearned. It would be like if someone dies in Game of Thrones, right? And then you're immediately told point blank what's happening to the camera. A good example, I guess spoilers for early Game of Thrones, but remember when Ned Stark gets beheaded and he, mentions how he knows about Jon Snow's family lineage but doesn't actually tell him about it? If that scene in Revelation about Jon's family was in the hands of the Last of Us Season 2 writers, they would have spilled all of that lore immediately in that first season for context as to why Ned was dying. But if you ask me, it's more powerful to not know the answers right away and wait until the right time to give those answers, even if they are years later in Game of Thrones case. It just feels like in Season 2 here of Last of Us that the writers had zero confidence in their story or writing by doing how they did it. Killing Joel and having Abby monologue saying, yeah, I'm killing you, but it's cause I'm the daughter of the surgeon you killed in the first season, it just feels cheap and lazy to me. It would be like if when Darth Vader strikes Obi-Wan down in A New Hope and then, Luke yells no in agony, and then Vader instead just turns around and goes, wait, it's okay, Luke, you see, I'm your father, to soften what just happened. We have a lot of history, me and Obi-Wan. That's why this is happening right now. That would be really stupid, but obviously they wait until much later, until Vader goes into the next movie and then says, by the way, I'm your father, which is obviously far more potent, as we all know. Even IGN agrees with this too. They gave the episode where Joel dies a 6 out of 10. And while sure, the added-on zombie invasion was cool in the episode, the actual crux of this, which was Joel dying, was yes, absolutely wasted 100%, and done far worse than the games did, and there's really no denying that, as IGN says here in their review of the episode about how they treated Joel's death. It's therefore disappointing that for most parts of Season 2 of The Last of Us' second episode, it feels like an afterthought, a sideshow to an explosive, all of it exciting battle sequence. Neither halves of the story are executed poorly, far from it, with both thrilling visual style and character-led substance. They just don't fuse together into a satisfying whole, and I agree. Joel's death should have been the main point of the episode, but like IGN says, it kinda just felt like an afterthought of anything. IGN also says that Joel's way of dying in the show is worse, since in the show, Abby sticks the broken club into Joel's neck. But in the game, the final blow that actually kills Joel is exasperated by the high-pitched ping of Abby cracking Joel's skull with a golf club as Ellie screams in agony. Basically, when it comes to the single most important moment of Part 2, HBO, Craig Mazin, Neil Druckmann, and everyone else that's involved with Season 2 here pretty much, you ask me, they fumbled the bag immensely with how they went about Joel's death. Also, kudos to Caitlin Dever, that's the actor who plays Abby, whose own mother in real life passed away from breast cancer a mere week or so before she started filming The Last of Us Season 2. So when she's angry and sad in this scene, I have no doubt that it's fueled by her hatred of cancer and how it took her mom's life and everything in real life. So again, no shade of Abby's acting, she did a great job. I just wish the actual writers weren't so terrified of losing their viewers like this by doing what they did to Joel. But I still do think over-explaining why Abby did this was a terrible idea. Because not knowing in the beginning of the second game is
Like
why
the tide,
it's so
Namor
effective. We know
always
when the
rises
first
again.
game begins, it's been something like 20 years since the infection
They
took
hit a
over
checkpoint.
everything. So there's a
Now
lot
might
of
be a
story
good time
that
to
could be
stop
told
them.
between when the collapse happened and when part 1 begins when it comes to Joel. When you start the first game, even the other smugglers in the beginning, they talk about how Joel is to some degree a living legend that lives amongst them. That he's a no-nonsense badass. You don't cross Joel when it comes to screwing someone over for a payday. We know this because very early on in the first game too, we see Joel and Tess are seen hunting people down in broad daylight for screwing them over. So for Joel to be as defeated as he is in Season 2's opening, it's sad and pathetic, but also on brand too, unfortunately. But it's still Abby, like I said, that's the other big problem. Most because you could immediately tell the showrunners and writers were terrified by the ramifications, specifically killing Pedro Pascal in their show so quickly. You can't tell the audience everything like this, because you're not only robbing them of emotion, but you're proving that the story
Like
that
the
you're telling
tide,
isn't good
Namor
enough to stand on
always
its own
rises
unless
again.
you treat the viewers like toddlers. Although I do like to change at least that when Joel dies in the show, the last time he sees Jackson, his home, that it's on fire, and that Joel dies not knowing if his brother Tommy or really anyone that he cares about over there is safe or not. But this does play into Joel's character when you think about it, because from the very beginning of the first game, it's made abundantly clear that Joel is always too late to save those around him. He loses his real daughter in the beginning of the game because he's too late to
I am
realize
ready
the
to
gravity
put on
of
a
the
show.
situation or the infection before that soldier gets the trip. It's too late to save Tess when she gets bit, and by the time he realizes what has happened to this woman that he cares deeply for, he suddenly gets ripped away. He has to say goodbye forever when she dies, giving them an escape route. Joel is too late to save Henry and Sam. Henry turns out to be bitten and turns infected. The only time Joel was
I will
able
not be
to
stopped
save
so
someone
easily.
that he loves was with Ellie at the end of the first game. But in saving her, he sets forth events that will lead to his death, and he's constantly unable to see events or motivations prior to them happening when it means the well-beings of others. The only times that Joel clearly could act or know before anyone else was when it came to his own life. But even then, when he enters that cold basement with Abby and her crew alongside Tommy, Joel is yet again too late to realize that he's just entered the lion's den and that he's actually going to die. And that's the tragedy of Joel Miller. His last thoughts are not knowing if Ellie will
I
survive
will
the
not be
encounter
stopped
that
so
they're
easily.
currently in. And everything he did up until this point, all the people that he's wronged and killed, the situations that he came out living from. And the last thing that he sees is the daughter that he never had, the daughter he never got to see grow up, just like his real daughter who died in his arms. All of this is left regret for Joel, and he dies powerless to save Ellie after sacrificing everything to save her. Joel is simply too late to save anyone he cares about, and it's gut-wrenching, really. But it also makes him a believable and likable character. The fact that he's clearly an imperfect man in an imperfect world, just
I will
trying to
not be
save what he
stopped so
loves
easily.
in it from the horror surrounding him. But the truth is that whether Part 2's story went down the way it did or not, Joel would inevitably die. It's just how he went out that pissed off most people, because the man has had a terrible life from the moment that he made him. And he really doesn't go out as a hero in like a blaze of glory, but instead he included his own blood for doing what he believed was the right thing. But seeing people who haven't played the games react to the fact that Joel died
Like
has
the
been nothing
tide.
short of hilarious for me. Like this user whose mom messaged them saying that they're done watching The Last of Us following Joel's death, and gee, I wonder why. HBO pretty much just lost every voting wife across America in like one fell swoop by killing their handsome leading man the way that they did. But I mean, hey, what can you do? But the fact people are realizing that even the show has done the game Everybody Hates No Justice has been vindicating as well as this person said. Not gonna lie, this scene feels so dumbed down in comparison to the scene of the game. Why is she just telling us her motivation instead of the story naturally conveying it to the audience? Why indeed, random Twitter user? Why indeed? It's almost as if they have no confidence in the story going over well with literally anyone or something. Neil Druckmann knows he can't change the story too much, because if he does, it'll prove to the people who made Part 2 that he will right all along. So the only move forward is to simply double and triple down on their terrible decisions. Otherwise,
ready
they're
to
going
put on a
call you
show.
fraud if they aren't already. Then you have Payo Aquino Twitter, bless his heart, who defends Last of Us 2 as a good game, and I agree with them that if you take Part 2 for what it is, in terms of its gameplay, how reactive the world is when, how everything AI reacts to how you can shoot at them and so on, how they can float, the sound feels to move around, the sound effects and so on, the voice acting, yeah, it's all amazing, there's never any of that. But it's the story, the crux of why you're playing this game as to why this game is so low, and it proves that no amount of lip filler, window dressing, and makeup can fix the bad story in the end. As this one user replied to Payo, I'm on the record in many places explaining that the tragedy of The Last of Us Part 2 is that so much art and talent was spent supporting such a poor story. I'm sorry, but you can't frame your game as a cinematic narrative adventure and not get judged on story. And it's exactly that. The reality is that the story is just not good, neither in its message nor its execution. And there's not much you can do, especially in a TV format, which also then removes plenty of unique reasons as to why Part 2 is even worth experiencing, which is of course the gameplay or how the guns feel to shoot and so on. So now you have a second season of television removed from its unique perspective of being an interactable video game, and all you're really left with is the core of this experience that nobody likes, which is the story. So now they have the impossible mission of making not one but 2 whole seasons of television on the one thing they can latch onto, which everyone hates. Do I think this show will fall off a cliff viewer-wise for HBO in the future? It's too early to tell yet, but we will have a better picture with the next episode and definitely the one after that. It did set the record though via Screen Rant. The Last of Us Season 2 Episode 2 sets all-time IMDb record for the HBO show following major event. The show currently has a 9.5 rating out of 10 on the International Movie Database. For this episode specifically, it's the highest rated episode of the series so far. What I have noticed, however, is that so far HBO is very hush-hush when it comes to how many people watch the second episode. We know that based on this from Variety that the second season premiere saw a 13% increase in viewership compared to season 1's opener. But so far, there's no data to signify this episode is done better or not anywhere I could find anyways. But this now brings up another question, which is now that the show has lost its biggest star for the most part, sure, Pedro Pascal will show up in some flashbacks later on in the season like Joel does in the game too, but for the most part now the show will just follow Ellie, Dina, and eventually Abby too. And my question now is, with the fact that this is obviously a show and not a game, is the star power of Bella Ramsey as Ellie or Caitlin Dever as Abby going to be enough to keep people wanting to tune in every week for not
30
one,
seconds
but 2
before you
whole
attack.
seasons of television?
Get ready.
Especially considering, without spoiling the story for anyone who doesn't know, but the way this game
Wow,
ends isn't
you
exactly
look tough.
something that has pleased fans either. And I wonder if besides Joel dying, if they'll change how the story
famous
ends too
singer.
or not, because if they keep it how it is, I think HBO is going to make people cancel their
Well,
subscriptions
we
in
are in the right
response, if
place
I'm
for
being
that.
honest with you guys, because the
Let's
ending
go.
of Part 2 was bad, like really bad. But I won't spoil that here, so
The
don't
battle
worry.
starts
But the
in
whole
5,
revenge is bad story is
4,
just stupid if you ask
3,
me, but here's what
2,
one user said in response
1.
to Last of Us 2 season's message. The thing that Neil Druckmann never understood is that humans are biased, and his crafty writing wasn't going to override that for most people. If you spend an entire game seeing a specific protagonist, you're going to choose them over who comes next. Abby's dad got killed. Buddy got killed by the last game's protagonist. Who cares about her dad? You only spent half the game with Abby while you spent a game and a half with Joel and Ellie. You're missing the point. Revenge is bad on both sides, and the prevailing response is, I don't care. I also think the people who side with Abby have to compete on a familiar unit, and that's beside the point. Unless you assume as a person you're going to want Abby dead, regardless if that's not the point of the story or not. And what this user said here is interesting to me, because whether you agree or disagree with them, the fact still remains. We're right that regardless of Abby was justified in her revenge, the point of the matter is that fans will side with Joel and Ellie over her no matter what, because they know those characters better and longer than Abby. Look, you had Spider-Man getting murdered by some guy, and the story tried to make you sympathize with the guy who kills literally Spider-Man of all people. You're not really going to care what his justifications were for killing Spider-Man, because he killed freaking Spider-Man, you know? The Last of Us did here is just that. Either killing Batman in his own movie or killing Luke Skywalker and replacing him with a superior female version where you end up with half the box office of the next movie. Oh wait, that happened, didn't it? You can try to say the revenge is bad, but I don't agree with any of that. Revenge is actually awesome. There's nothing sweeter than getting revenge on someone who screwed you over. The only people who think revenge is bad are people who are terrified of being on the receiving end of someone wanting their revenge. There's no scenario where revenge is not morally the right choice. If someone ends your whole family and the story suddenly goes, but what that person doesn't mean that he and his family, it's just stupid and cold. That just means that either wins or don't take action. Look at how I and others fought in video games for so long before the game of this thing. If I and other content creators didn't fight back exposing things and showing the public how all of these things are such individual players, we instead got our vengeance. And I'll tell you guys, I feel bad because of it. There's no way you can tell me that destroying weirdo ideology in games or movies or TV is not a good thing. And the people who will justify what I did was wrong by exposing this nonsense are just the very same kinds of people who are benefiting from the existence of those groups and those companies by pushing stuff like Indiana's home. The point is that revenge is not bad, neither is vengeance. Humans have been fighting since forever, well before any of us were alive. Other nations would be invading others literally all over the world. When the Persians invaded Greece and the Greeks fought back and won, was that not morally right of them to do so? If the alternative would be that Greece would be placed under the rule of an enemy nation, no, of course not. The only people who would think it would be morally right to invade somewhere and not retaliate are the very people who would benefit directly from that invasion. Don't think stupid. Imagine if someone just shot your mom or dad, then you find out, well, your mom or dad cut them off or trapped them. God forbid they hurt that person before the past. Regardless of why they did it, the end result is that they took someone you care about from you. Would it not be more morally just to let that person go and then forgive them, knowing that they just took someone that you cared about? Oh, what's that? So that's the cycle of violence that we're talking about? Where does it end? The answer is that it never ends no matter what you do. Maybe it's because I got Slavic blood in me, but if I am wronged by someone, I will do everything in my power to get my vengeance on them no matter what. Because this whole notion of let's hold hands and put our differences aside and sing Kumbaya together is stupid. If you get wrong, you get revenge. Simple as that. You shouldn't let evil people get away with things that are done with you because they make you feel bad about it. And in Last of Us's cases, what Joel did for Ellie was morally justified in my opinion. Killing those fireflies was morally right to do so. They could have making it kill. Joel's just gonna let them kill another immune kid again for no reason. I think one of the most believable decisions I think I've ever seen someone making a video game is what Joel does at the end of that first game when he says to Marlene when she treated her life to let her go.
By the eye of Agamotto!
Yeah, dude, exactly that. Any justification or reasoning is hiding handled by the fact that these people are also in a literal apocalypse scenario too. There's no laws, no jury or anything like that. It's kill or be killed, that's all that matters. And if someone say, hey, we gotta kill your mom for her organs or something else, sorry, no can do. Now you all are going to go to the next life together while I separate your brains from your heads with small pieces of metal that will now be shot at you at terminal velocity from this little handy gun I got here instead. Because here's the thing, a lot of people need to understand, alright? And it may sound cold to some, but it's gotta be said. No one in this world owes you anything. And I agree. I'm gonna say don't be kind to people, but you don't need to sacrifice everything you are to appease other people. There's only one rule to everything in this universe, which is the law of equal exchange. Whatever you give must be taken from someone else. And whatever you receive is taken from someone else. It's like life and death. It's the great equalizer. The point is that if someone tries to convince you to band down, to castrate your beliefs to serve theirs, all they've done is convince you to waste everything you are to live their way of life or their beliefs up instead. I'm not about that way at all. I wouldn't compromise my morals or reasonings because someone tells me it might hurt someone else's feelings. I knew advocating for stuff like Gamergate would lead to a lot of fire and chaos, but I knew it was necessary to change things for the better. And most of the time, to make things better, they need to become worse first. Anyone who tries to say that isn't the case, they're the ones who benefit from the thing that you're trying to change. 9 times out of 10, and you I don't want to make this video into a therapy session long enough, but the moral of the B is that Joel was right and the fans were right that the story will not go over well with these non-gaming fans who are now experiencing The Last of Us for the first time. And it's very obvious from the multitude of reviews online that I could read all day here from the range of 0 out of 5 stars or 1 out of 5 stars. They all say the same thing, that this decision to kill Joel ruins The Last of Us completely. There's a reason why, as far as we know, there's no third game in development, because they pretty much wrote themselves into a corner here with how this game plays out, and it's obvious that the modern audience has resoundingly rejected this decision on all fronts. And it's vindicated to see that no matter how the story is told, people will reject it no matter what, because they know that deep in their hearts that the stupid life lesson of revenge is bad is only something morally bankrupt dummies want you to believe. And the fact they overtold with Abby proves that they don't really have the confidence in the story at all. And if they did, they would have kept it in business. But HBO screwed around and found out. Guess you really shouldn't have killed Joel, huh? Whoopsie. Thank you for watching. What do you think about all of this? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe, take care of yourself. And oh yeah, Joel was right.
This is real firepower!
To call this game a failure before it leaves out was wild. Really? Well, it wasn't wild. It was not so it's actually, like, I think that it's really funny how all of these developers people want to have when the game is going to die. Like, I'm sorry, but, like, people were right about, Okay. Let's just make a list. Notepad.
Always were a
Okay.
veteran child
Games
wonder.
people
Only 60
were
seconds
right
left.
about. Okay. Number one.
What of spiders? This should be the weather has shifted in your favor. I will crush them
Okay.
all.
There it is.
This place and the Master Weaver must be protected.
Out.
That's
There we
it!
go.
Don't let anything stand in your way.
South
18 speeds left.
south of midnight.
Embrace the light.
Midnight. Forspoken.
Another 30 seconds. Covered.
Lost records.
It's spider time!
Like nobody cares about that kind of game. But like, sure, I went lost. Unknown 9. People don't even know what game that is. So how is it
Final 10
that
seconds!
every time that
dressed,
the
aren't you?
internet of
My
capital
power
G
knows
gamers
no
decides that the game is going to be garbage?
The current score is
It's garbage.
3, 2, 0.
Isn't that interesting?
Time
How
to switch things
every
up,
single
including
time
which
that one
side
of these
you're
games
on.
comes out, and people say it's going to be bad.
Be wary.
It's bad
no
every single time.
timeline exists where Magneto yields.
The right heroes could make all the difference.
You have like a 100% success ratio, and the only game on this list is maybe Assassin's Creed Shadows, right? Maybe this one wasn't as big of a failure, but I think it was, especially considering what their projections, I'm assuming, were. Redfall, yes, look at this, Redfall. But how many of these
Round
are there?
two,
Skull and
go!
I'm not
Bones.
the man I used to be. I have found
It's
a
just
greater
insane.
cause.
I
Speed
mean,
is everything.
Avengers. From Square Enix, just so people don't get it confused with
They'll be
obviously
coming in 30
Marvel
seconds.
rivals.
Stay strong.
It's Anthem. No,
I have
really
been
I don't
fighting
remember
to
what
protect
Anthem,
my
like
people
the dialogue
since
was
before
around
you were
that, so
born,
I don't know.
boy.
Yeah, Saints Row. Here's the thing.
Ah, the fire of youth.
We
the
could
charming,
keep going.
but dangerous. You would be
Urges
wise
players
to
to
follow
call
my
this
lead.
game a failure before
The
it's
battle
out
starts
is
in
wild
5,
to me.
4, 3,
Well, welcome to the
2,
fucking jungle,
1.
bitch. There it seems we have company, and it sure seems like there's a 100%. I'm sorry.
You need to stop that vehicle in its tracks.
Let's get to it. And so I don't know why I replied to this. I said some games deserve to be aborted. Concord is the reason why I'm pro-choice. Marathon was okay, but the characters were over-designed and are not visually appealing. That's it. And so I don't think that game is a dedicated campaign. DOA, base fake ass roll, as usual.
You are under my protection.
Marathon
I can be
stuff.
reckless now.
You're
This is real firepower!
Maximum pulse!
Project fail, but urges players not to judge Marathon
It's winter time!
is wild to me. It's wild to me.
Much better.
Let's go ahead.
Spiders.
This is like
Incoming! Just embrace the light!
SBF.
Strong together!
I forgot even what the company was called. It's like this is like if you invested in Enron, Theranos, FTX. It's like an investment. Guys, no, this one's not a scam.
You cannot hurt me.
The only octopus I like is the grill.
Yeah, but Bernie Madoff, yeah, exactly.
This is real firepower!
Hey,
Better
all.
stop that vehicle!
Former Firewalk
They
Studios
made it
stuff
out
here.
of
I've been a long-time worker for many years, and I rarely post anything.
Mutants
But after
always
reading the
rise
comments about
again.
Marathon being Concord 2.0 on Reddit, YouTube, and Twitch, I just wanted to share a little insight into what a 40-year-old man is feeling after dedicating a large portion to his life for making video games. For the past,
There's still a chance to
I mean, he
stop
dedicated
them.
the last 7
Only
years of
60
his life to
seconds left.
comedy. But other than that, yeah, maybe he made another game before that as well.
Maximum pulse!
And what happened with the project.
They hit a checkpoint.
Concord failed to
Now
inspire
might be a good time to stop them.
heard loud and clear. Well, apparently not by Bungie. It was
Mutants
gut-wrenching to watch
always
our
rise
project
again.
fail and be the laughing stock of many online. Well, yeah, I bet it was. Listen, we all know this, but I'll say it again. I am the most empathetic streamer. So
feel
I
like
can
I
Better stop that
understand the way he would. I bet it sucks.
Just in this way.
We must
I
get
do.
to safety.
I bet it sucked that everybody making fun of you. I can easily see that. It makes a lot of sense.
Disappear!
So I can see that. I understand it. I have learned that failure is what drives me to succeed. Well then, why are you driving Bungie to fail? No one feels as bad as the people who put their time on the line, hoping that it will entertain the masses of gamers around the world.
Firepower!
Then I took a chance and I won. You didn't take a chance. You did not take a chance. You didn't want it. You actively went against it. You pushed down into games that didn't resonate with your core audience. You did this knowingly. If you ask this guy, who the fuck
Maximum pulse!
not an audience type of thing? No, it's insane. Like, this isn't a chance. You just decided
Magic
to lose.
is not to be owned,
Us
but
gamers
to be
are
felt.
tired of
Stopped them
this.
in their tracks.
Well,
experienced,
gamers have
lived.
risen up. The prophecy has been fulfilled.
Hey,
The
stop that
idols are
vehicle.
being destroyed, and a new world is being made anew.
There they are.
The Concords of yesterday
Such newfound power.
More tentacles than Gargantuan.
Nameless subjects no longer pose a threat.
and you probably
Disappear!
you made a mistake. It's
Only
okay.
60 seconds left.
Happen.
Strange creatures lurk the latest.
The only octopus I like is shrimp.
Really fucked up, didn't you? And the worst part about it is you don't even understand how you
My time to
fucked up.
shine.
That's the problem.
The Sorcerer
It's what I
Supreme
said earlier.
returns.
Down to
If you
30
can't
seconds.
figure out why you
I'm
failed,
opening a portal.
you can never succeed.
There's still a chance to stop them.
Because you can never reverse engineer why it is that things didn't go
A
right.
shortcut through space.
Why would you Are you retarded?
Lightning is
The final 10 seconds.
That's why they use animated profile pictures.
Maximum pulse! By the eye of
We have a winner.
This is ridiculous. The team is so weird, but you can't say that. You can't say that. And you can't say that because you're still
Nameless creatures are no longer a threat.
I hope you don't. Most people don't feel this project will work out.
Hands are shaking again.
They hit a checkpoint. Now might be a good time to
for
stop
taking a
them.
chance and trying something foreign to them that isn't proven nor guaranteed to succeed. Yes, because Bungie has never made a futuristic fantasy shooter with laser guns.
One
and
couldn't
different
win
planets.
without
This
the
is
other.
actually the first game like that they've ever made.
What have you summoned now? Leave me, darkness.
You know, anything goes, right? Yeah, who knows? Anyway, it takes a lot of courage. TLDR, Concord,
Healing energy.
Only 60 seconds left.
We're not punishing others for your mistakes. We're recognizing that we're all human beings who are trying to create something better.
Over here. I suck.
Marathon is no different. Being some kind and cool as video game this property is everybody don't want characters that look like this. And type of perspective. Nobody in the development, nobody in the gaming audience, or sorry, the gaming professional space can address this because it's career suicide. And I want to promise
Let's keep playing until we have a winner.
because games will kill your game.
Maximum pulse!
And here's what you want to join the great show?
By the eye of Agamotto! I am strengthened for battle. Nobody
The only person who wins here when you lose is me.
Final score 3, 2, 2.
The dogpiling is real? Absolutely. Absolutely. So only the games
Another
that you
epic
approve?
victory. Big
Yes.
win.
I've been trying to become, get to Trump and tell him that we need a video game czar. If I become the video game czar, there will never be another fat woman in a video game ever again. I promise you. There will never be a girl with a cup size under double D ever again. I promise. That's right. I will not let you down. L, we need small tits. Okay. So okay, but they have to be sexualized in another way. That's okay. No, you're right. You're right. There are guys that like that, and that's okay. But then it has to be something different. You know? But yeah, something else different, right? And anyway, so I can take care of this. I'll do